Okay. So, with metal insets, there are several things that you need. There should be individual containers of pencils, and so the child gets to choose what colors they want. And let them choose 3. There are 3 slots right here for them. And then you get a piece of paper. And then the first inset that I always introduced is the circle. So they take all of that, they carry it to the table. If you read in the book, I'm going to show you the full first presentation, but you can isolate that if you need to. So for your really, really young ones, you can just show them how to trace the inside of the inset. Because that's pretty much, especially your 2.5-year-olds, that's pretty good if they just get that, because they'll probably end up like coloring in the circle. So the easiest is the circle outside, and then the next hardest would be the circle inside of the inset. So you're tracing the outside of the inside. The reason why is because it's much easier to hold this one in place and trace versus this one you're going to have to move your hands as you go around the outside. Now, a few things with tracing. The reason we do the circle first, and then I would move into the ovoid and ellipsoid. Would it be vice versa? Oval and ellipse?
Okay.
Not the 3-dimensional, just the 2-dimensional ones. Sorry, but go ahead.
No, that's what I was asking.
Oh, you're like, no, those aren't the names of the shapes, Christine. Come on. The ellipse and the oval. But we introduce the curved shapes first because the curve is easier for a child to write than a straight line.
Okay.
And then you don't have all of the points within the shape that you have to stop at.
Okay.
So the one line basically is easier to trace than multiple lines.
If a child is pretty keen on doing a specific shape, do you tell them no and introduce the circle still first?
Well, your first introduction, you are going to pick the shape.
Okay.
So I'm giving you a lesson, so I'm picking the shape. So this is the first one. After they've been introduced to this, they can work with any of them.
Okay.
This is just the one that I introduce first because it is easier for them. They'll have the most success with it.
Okay.
So you can break it down how you need to, but this is the official first introduction. The other thing, when you're tracing shapes, we always trace them in the same way we would write letters. So that's going to be counterclockwise. Would you like to try? And you can use whichever colors you want. And I would never correct a child if they traced it in the wrong direction. Just as the example, you want to make sure you're going in your counterclockwise.
Do you have to make that line?
So the lines on the inside, that works on the control of movement, and also we're not coloring the full thing, but staying within the lines as well. So I just realized on here, this isn't necessarily a mistake, but we had decided, we went back and forth when I wrote the manual about what to do. So you'll see some people do one continuous line back and forth, but we had decided to actually pick up each line. The reasoning we discovered for it was that the people who did this way taught cursive first, so that you were showing like the continuous line that you use when writing. But since we use block letters in the beginning, I'd recommend that you pick it up and draw individual lines. And it's certainly not wrong to color it within here. I do remove it just to make it easier for the coloring purposes, but that's your preference. Then you can ask the child if they want to make more. Now typically most teachers will have a limit. After they're done making one, they can make multiple, but they'll usually limit how many they can make in a day, and then they'll make it into a book.
Okay.
So like you can do 5 metal insets in one book.
Okay.
So they get 5 pages a day. Otherwise you're going to be going, the paper is very expensive and you'll go through a lot of it.
Okay, sounds good.
Kind of depends. And then you can also encourage them if they want to turn their papers over and use the other side. So
that I have done.
Yeah, so that's good too. But it's fun after they make several of them, then you can staple them into a book that they get to take home. Cool. But it's amazing how these advance, because you'll see kids that will just be able to trace it, or they won't even fully be able to trace it, and they'll just be kind of like scribbles all over the place.
I'll see kids who do like this and then move it here, and they'll make.
Yes.
They'll layer it.
So let me grab the manual now and I'll show you the different presentations that go along with this. So the first one is a wide line. The next one is a more narrow line. So see how closely you can get your lines together. So this just goes with their control of movement and lightness of touch as they're writing, the exactitude that they use with their pencil. And then this one is a full coloring in of the inset.
Okay.
And the way, when I demonstrate the coloring in, you kind of start and just do really small rows all the way across. Like when I've done a demonstration with the child, it took me probably like 10 minutes just to color in the whole thing, and they like sat and watched the whole thing. Like, that's incredible. But that's like, if you look at this, that's like all the lines are the way they are.
Yeah. I've been trying.
Rather than like, color the whole thing in.
Yeah.
You just like, the whole purpose of the metal insets is to encourage creativity, but also to improve their motor. Yeah. So, step 4 is to do 2 shapes in one. So they actually get to mix and match. And then they can do overlapping of the same shape. And then multiple shapes. So kind of what you're talking about, the kids were doing. So all of these, and then the cool thing about it is the way that they color them in, they get to decide which ones overlap.
That's neat.
The grading one is really cool, and it takes a long time.
I think I actually showed that to Maddie when she first showed me. And I showed her how she could do like the different colors into like darker to lighter, or fading them into a different color.
So with this one, you're actually just using one color.
Okay.
And it's your lightness of touch is what it's showing. So you start like, you're coloring it the same way you would the full one, but you start with just like super light, and then you get a little bit heavier, a little bit heavier, so that when you get towards the bottom of the page, you're using a really firm grip.
So you start with lightest, you don't start with darkest?
Well, typically, bless you.
Thanks.
I guess it doesn't specifically say. It says start from the top and move your way down. So with this example, they started with the lightest and went to the darkest.
Oh, okay. I wasn't sure if there was a particular way for it.
Yeah, it would probably be easier on their hand if they start with the lightest first.
Okay.
Since you're doing a lot of coloring. They might need to take a break halfway through it. So this just shows you all the different ways that you can layer them. And then it gets really complicated when you get to this one because you don't actually trace all of it. If it's underneath another one, you stop tracing. So it's usually like older kids. You'll have like your 2.5, 3-year-olds be able to do just the basic tracing, and then your 4-year-olds can start working on these ones. But it's like your 5 and 6-year-olds that you bring back to the metal insets and start doing the really fun ones. And then just very interesting designs that you can make with those.
Cool.
And then you can actually do pages, so you can take it out of the metal inset booklets and you can do cool shapes.
So
just
I
like on a paper.
thought about doing something like this for Rylan because she's been struggling with knowing her shapes. And I actually did something like this with the geometric cabinet because we didn't have all of the insets for some of the shapes she wasn't getting.
Oh, that's weird. Like
Quadrilaterals.
Oh, okay. Like there just aren't metal insets, yeah. And these really aren't meant to teach the shapes, but they're good for reinforcement, for sure. Another activity that could help for reinforced shapes is the geostick board, which that's what our in-service training is for next Friday that Stace and Jenny need to come to. So they'll get a refresher on that.
Cool.
But if you need help with shapes, talk to Stace because her kids got those down. She works on those a lot.
Yeah. We used to do it a lot during Circle, and then because they're flashcards, Jenny didn't really like those, so I was trying to think of more concrete ways to implement them.
Hopefully she'll start implementing the geostick board in her room more.
Really cool.
Kids.
What is a geostick board?
It's a cork board, and there are different lengths of wooden pieces, and you can do the polygons with them, but it's primarily for triangle facts. So you learn the difference between a right versus an obtuse versus an acute angle, and you can actually build them. So there's push pins that you put in there, and that holds them in place, and they can form all the different triangles.
Okay. I think I have seen Stace do something like that.
Yeah, they probably primarily use it with their afternoon kids right now, so you might not see it a lot in the morning.
Yeah.
But then other extensions, you can do creative things. So with each of the shapes, they can think of something that looks like that shape. So like there's Easter eggs, pumpkins, they did do SpongeBob, basketball, flowers, trees.
Nice.
So all sorts of things that they can use their imagination. So I've seen kids make houses with the pentagon and all sorts of fun stuff.
Cool.
Any questions about this? Is
Nope.
it somewhat similar to the way you've been introducing it?
I'm going to be doing better now.
Well, in the beginning, if you're just having them trace the outside,
Yeah.
this is the simplest, is the circle outside.
I recommended to them to color it in if they wanted, but if that's presentation 3, and he didn't seem so interested in doing that anyways.
Yeah, in the beginning, a lot of them are really more just interested in tracing the outline of it, which that's cool.
Yeah.
Whatever we can get them interested in actually writing, increasing their dexterity, and it takes a lot of muscle and endurance to be able to write. And my hands still get tired because I didn't practice writing enough when I was a kid, apparently. But it's a great way for them to practice.
Is it, I know they have not necessarily metal insets, but like, are they still called insets where they have the different shapes and you trace them on the inside? They're like sheets and they have a bunch of different shapes or different sizes of the same shape.
What are they made out of?
Plastic. I see them in other schools, like just regular schools, or you can just buy them in the store. Would that be okay to use at home?
Like a stencil?
Stencils.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, stencils are cool.
Okay.
Actually, what I recommend if you're wanting to do tracing something similar to this, cookie cutters.
Cookie cutters?
That's what we use with our toddlers.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, because you can do the inside or the outside. And so
Okay.
you get practice doing both. And then they're fun because you can match them back too. Because this also works on like matching the shapes back to their outline by
Okay.
using the inside with it. So, yeah, cookie cutters are good. Simple.
Good, because I have those already.
Yeah.
Don't have to go out and buy stencils.
No, no point doing that.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.